Deion Sanders has done things his way and his way only, but is he starting to adjust his ways? I think Colorado's most recent recruiting win says yes.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network in the business. So thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about why I think Coach Prime is slightly adjusting his stance on certain positions and what kind of players he wants to bring in. We're going to talk more about the drama between the former Colorado Buffalo that took an absolute missile shot at Coach Prime and the program, and why I think those who are Colorado alumni and the current regime of Colorado need to find some middle ground. And then Georgia Tech, the first game of the year next year for Colorado, it got moved to Thursday, and I'll talk about why this is somewhat important. So without further ado, let's talk about why I think we have two examples already of Coach Prime changing how he targets recruits, right? I think, and every program does this, right? I had a friend over yesterday, and we were watching old highlights of the Texas versus LSU game in 2019 when Joe Burrow went up against Texas. And we both noticed that all of Texas's players looked ginormous, right? All of the wide receivers were like 6'5". They were all like 200 plus pounds. Same thing with the safeties and the corners. They were all massive, lengthy and stuff. Coach Prime has been adamant that his running backs need to be a bit undersized, right? He likes the 5'9" to 5'10" compact, speedy guys, and that's fine. Right? We've seen some guys work out like that. Like Dylan Edwards was really good. Simeon Wilkerson was really good for him at Jackson State. DeKalen Taylor's a very good player. We haven't got to see a lot of it at Colorado because he got injured, but he likes some undersized running backs, and that has changed. I'll get to that a little bit. But corners, he has been adamant that he doesn't love guys under 5'11". Mind you, Colorado landed a commitment recently by the name of Davon Derrico, I believe is how you say it, or Derricho. He is out of Miami, Florida, goes to Killian. And obviously, Coach Prime loves himself some Miami guys, but he chose Colorado. He committed to Colorado over Florida State, Indiana, Louisville, Maryland. The guy is a track star. He qualified for states as a junior in the 4x100, and he runs a very, very impressive 11:10 in the 100-meter dash, and then a 23.94 in the 200-meter dash. And so he's a small guy, projects as a nickel. But he's 5'9", and I think Colorado, and we're seeing this a lot with their entire portal class, and specifically Devon here, is I think they're starting to throw out measurables and more so prioritizing, can they just ball? Can they just be a dog for us, right? Nathan Mitchell is a bit undersized, the New Mexico State safety transfer. He told me on the show, like, yeah, that was kind of the one thing that I struggled with at my recruitment was I was just so small that people kept overlooking me. And I think like Santana Hopper is not very big. They have Dylan Manuel, who's a larger human for sure, but they've brought in a couple defense linemen that aren't the biggest guys. And I think a lot of people are looking at this and scoffing and going, oh, brother, like they're not bringing in big guys. And I think so many times we get lost in the measurables of guys, right? If you look at a guy like Jaheim Otis, on paper, Jaheim Otis is everything you want, right? He's massive. He's 6'5", 6'5.5", right? Weight, he's 350-ish. He's huge. He looks like he should be a dominant force. He looks like he should just body everybody. But you can't teach mentality. Jaheim Otis had the mentality of someone who's fine with being a football player and is fine with just hanging out, right? You look at a guy like, I mean, you can say the same thing about a few of those guys. DJ McKinney had all the measurables, but this year he was undisciplined. He was sloppy, committed a lot of penalties, gave up a lot of big plays. And so I think Colorado is getting to a point now where they're no longer chasing the measurements and they're just chasing the ballers. And when you bring in a guy like this, like Davon from Miami, Florida, who, like, who it reminds me of, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to roll your eyes at this. D'Angelo Pons, right? The Indiana corner who is very undersized from Miami. I know you guys know who T-Cal is. He tagged, I think it was Coach Risperis at the time, who's now, I would think, with Florida State. He tagged him and was like, hey, look at this kid's film. He's really good. And Risperis said something along the lines of, we don't do corners under 5'11", right? And D'Angelo Pons is probably going to be a top 3-round draft pick, right? He's really good, super fast. And so I think we're starting to see an adjustment period from Colorado now where it's like, okay, we just need to go with the guys who could play over the guys who possibly may look the part and could play, right? Another prime example of this, Richard Young, the Alabama transfer. Obviously, that move had Brennan Marion written all over it because I think he knows what sort of running backs complement his system. But Colorado has been fiending for 5'9" to 5'11" running backs. Richard Young, and all those guys are undersized. Michael Welch is a little bit of an anomaly, I would say, because he's on the bigger side, but in terms of weight. But Richard Young, I saw a picture of him and the other running backs the other day. He is a mammoth of a person, right? He looks like he could play defensive end. He looks like he could play linebacker, but no, he's going to be toting the rock for Colorado, and he could be one of their more physical players. He's 5'11", pretty much 6 foot, 215 pounds. The dude is massive, and you compare that to the guys that Colorado had leading the way last year, and Isaiah Gustav was pretty good the year before, and he was bigger too. And so you just look at some of these small differences like that I'm noticing, like Michael Welch in comparison, 5'9", 215. So he's 2 inches shorter, around the same weight, but Simeon Price, I think he was taller and around the same weight, but they are sort of molding and changing who they're bringing in. And I like this from Colorado. I think it's a reinvention, if you will, because when you bring in a roster that you say is better than the one that goes 9-4 with a Heisman winner, top 5 pick, and then an NFL quarterback and four NFL receivers, and you say this roster is better, and then you go 3-9, something's not right. And you make the coaching changes, you are starting to make the personnel changes, and I think Colorado bringing in an undersized corner who's just a really good player, who breaks up passes, who's very disruptive. He had 4 interceptions, I think it was, this past year, and 7 pass breakups. Like the guy, or 7 pass breakups, 5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Like, you're just targeting guys who could play. And you're no longer going, does he check these boxes, these boxes? Just get the guys who could play, right? Indiana just went 16-0 because they believed in these guys who were undervalued, right? They were either undersized, they weren't as polished as recruits as other guys, but they built a roster of those guys, developed them, and they won a championship. Now, is that in the cards for Colorado? I hope so. I don't know. We have to wait and see. But we could see with these changes that Coach Prime is making that he is starting to adjust how he builds his roster. And I think that's huge. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the disconnect between the Colorado alumni and the current coaching regime. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Indeed. Now, let's talk Indeed. Hiring, it's hard. There's workplace chaos. There's deadlines stacking up. The inbox is overflowing. And the one position you had to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show, you could get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your premium or your job the premium it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show, by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Hey, you. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. If you haven't already, we have a really cool Discord where me, Jay Smith are in there chatting it up, talking about the latest things. about Colorado, who the new defensive line coach is going to be, because I know someone asked that in the comment section as well. We are talking about who we think it could be, stuff we're hearing, the intel. Join our Discord. The link is lockedonbuffs.supercast.com. I'll slap it in the comment section below so that way you guys can join it. It's really cool. You could chat with me. You could ask Jay questions. You could also chat with Jordan Dominic, who I will send him your questions as well. He's a former Buff who comes on the show during the season. So join the Everydayer Club. The other perk is if you listen to my show every morning or every night, whenever you listen to it, and you want to skip through the ads because you're in a rush, you can do that as well as a part of the Everydayer Club. So do yourself a favor, join the Everydayer Club. Let's talk Christian Fauria again, because that was a polarizing as a topic I think I've discussed during my time. I think I've been at Locked On for 3 years now. I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary, so that was exciting. But I think there's this weird disconnect between the former Colorado guys and the current Colorado regime. And I don't think anyone's really trying that hard to sort of be the bigger person, if you will. It's one of those things. He reached out because he was asked about a couple of things, but he reached out to the USA Today and released some comments. But the thing that really stood out to me was how he just went in on Coach Prime. He said, "I'm not a fan of the coach, never be a fan of the coach. I love the school. And this isn't me picking on Deion Sanders because I pick on Joe Gibbs. The worst coach I ever had was Joe Gibbs. So my picking on Deion Sanders is nothing. I just don't like the way he coaches. I don't think he's very bright. I don't think he can manage a game. I think there's a lot of flash, but I think there's no substance. And he's got a lot of people brainwashed." And the hard part about the Deion Sanders, I guess, experience in Colorado is Colorado, when Coach Prime took over, was in the bottom barrel of college football. I would say 99.9% of people could not care less about the program. People did not care about who was the coach. They didn't care about the recruits. They didn't care about the players. I had a buddy on the team, and I loved watching him. I loved watching Laviska Shenault. But I would say the average college football fan did not care about Colorado. Coach Prime comes in and sort of revitalizes the energy around the program. Not even revitalizes, takes it to a whole other level and a whole other stratosphere, a whole other Milky Way, whatever you want to call it, universe, planet. And I think everyone wanted a part of the Coach Prime experience, right? It is what it is. I'm not going to pretend like I was super dialed into all things Colorado when they were struggling. I was watching and I was following for work. Obviously, I worked at the Pac-12, so I was I have to know what's happening. But I wasn't oh, Carl Durrell, what's up? What's he up to, right? Coach Prime comes in and just podcasts all over the internet are starting. People are constantly talking about the games. First Take, the Fox show, they're all there, right? They are all sort of in Boulder, and they are all excited to cover Coach Prime. And I think there was a lot of alumni who were excited that Coach Prime was bringing attention to the program, but were sort of hoping that he was going to do things the way that they were used to. And the one thing that we've learned about Coach Prime, if you didn't know this already, and I feel like I could have told you this, but I mean, no one asked, is Coach Prime is going to do him, right? Coach Prime is the only professional athlete to play in the NFL and the MLB actively at the same time. He played in the World Series and then the NFL at the same time. He does what he wants, right? He told a NFL team that he wasn't going to take a test because they weren't going to be there or because he wasn't going to be on the board when they were drafting. I think it was the Giants, right? He told the NFL, which this didn't work out for him, but again, he's unapologetically himself. He told the NFL constantly before the draft this past, or I guess 2 years ago now, or last year, that they were going to pick where Shador goes. They're like, you know what? We're going to pick. And I think so many Colorado alumni were hopeful that he was just going to sort of fall in line and do the traditions and sing the fight song and do whatever and go to the quad or whatever, do whatever they did back in the day. And Coach Prime is not doing that, right? He's bringing in different kinds of players. He doesn't recruit the state very well. I think that's something that's going to change as well as a part of his adjustment to his overcorrection. Ignore the Pedialyte. Your boy is sick. Apparently New York City was ready for your guy. But I think they just had so much hope for Deion Sanders sort of elevating the traditions and not bringing in his own. And so when you see a guy like Christian Fauria super upset and getting super personal with Coach Prime, me and Jay talked about this last week, that just reeked of maybe there being a little bit animosity about how his son's situation went in Boulder. But I just think the older players need to understand that is a new age of Colorado. And I think Coach Prime, while I don't think he's really at fault for like getting attacked, like he can't do anything about it, like how these other grown men feel about him. But could he possibly embrace the alumni more? Maybe, right? I think he did it a little bit at the beginning, right? He brought in Cordell Stewart, Michael Westbrook, a couple other guys, and I remember him doing it. Does he rely on them? I don't think so, right? I don't think there's a lot of alumni that really feel super welcome in Boulder right now. And I think Coach Prime is figuring out how to, I don't want to say run a program, but how to be at a program where people want to be back and want to be included in stuff. And so, again, Christian Fauria's comments to me, they were out of line. I think you could say I don't think he's that great of a coach and hit on the game management stuff. And I would be like, okay, I can see that case there, right? I've been critical of Coach Prime's game management because it's cost them many games. I put together a whole Twitter thread. It almost cost them the North Dakota State game. It cost them the USC game in 23. It almost cost them, it did cost them some part of the game against Nebraska this, or not last, or 2 years ago now. It cost them against, who else am I missing? I had a whole thread, right? There was a lot of moments where the Georgia Tech game, where you go home with all 3 timeouts and you basically run out of time at the end of the game, right? You could have said, like, I don't think he's ready as a head coach just yet. I don't think he's the right man for the job, but the attack was way too personal. And I think the underlying message, there's 2 underlying messages in Christian's attacks. One, I think he's upset with how the situation went down with his son. I think that's just sort of the blatantly obvious one. Like, he wished his son got treated differently. I don't know. Maybe his son was shown the door. I don't know. But 2, I think there's a large disconnect between Coach Prime and the alumni. And until that sort of gets mended, I don't know how you mend that, because Coach Prime is definitely one of those guys where it's like, he keeps receipts, right? Right. I think it was Ed Werder who, after the first game, Coach Prime was, he was like, oh, I remember what you said. I'm not talking to you. Like, Coach Prime's going to hold a grudge, right? So I don't know how you go about fixing this, to say the least, because Coach Prime necessarily doesn't have to embrace the alumni. But I think there's too much divisiveness within Colorado. And this comes from, there's three different types of fans in Colorado. There's Coach Prime fans, there's Colorado fans who were sort of there before, the Miss Peggies of the world, and Miss Peggy obviously loves Coach Prime, but the fans who love Colorado regardless if they're 1-11 and nobody's watching them on TV, to the fans who are like living it up right now because Colorado's the biggest story in sports. But there are 2 type of fans. And then there's the Colorado and Deion Sanders fans, where it's like, I think they're trying to appreciate both, but it's very divisive. And until we sort of get an olive branch from both sides, I think it's going to continue to be this way. I think you're going to continue to see alumni be upset, and I think you're going to continue to see maybe Coach Prime not embrace the traditions as much as some people would like. So I don't think Christian Fauria's comments were, I don't think they were appropriate. I honestly felt like they were a low blow. They got way too personal for my liking. But at the end of the day, that is sort of going to be a common thing until we see some common ground made up. So that's my stance on the matter. You guys comment below. What do you think about it? I know it's difficult to really narrow down what's been going wrong, but that's life, I guess. We're going to take a quick break. The Colorado 2026 schedule already received a huge update, and I'm kind of a fan, and I'll explain why. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen, I'm going to highlight, who am I going to highlight? This is tough. I'm going to highlight Brendan Marion, because I feel like he's helped change the model and, I guess, the identity of Colorado already. And I think he's sort of helping Colorado find the hidden gems. And so it's the extra work away from the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit, and I never quit. So that's why I pick him. We put that same passion over at Mazda into every model. Highlights make the real. What it takes to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole ordeal. if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which teams can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. And now, not only can you pick your cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use a profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's talk. Also, I see some comments. How was he exposed? I think Coach Prime was, and I talked about this in the earlier segment, I think he was trying to find guys that fit a mold, right? He was finding the Jaheim Otises of the world where it's like they fit this size threshold. He was finding corners where it's like they're this height, so they could do this. And Colorado's secondary was terrible. Their running backs were all undersized and banged up. Like I think they are. I'm explaining it right now. Sorry, Robert. I don't know if you're not getting it, but here we are. Like Coach Prime had to sort of come to the conclusion that looking for guys that fit a certain mold isn't always working out. So he's now looking for the guys who are just straight up talented and can straight up ball. That's what I mean. So let's talk Georgia Tech. It's going to be an interesting game. They have Fernando Mendoza's little brother, Alberto, probably going to be the starter. It's going to be in Atlanta, which I've been to Atlanta, very nice over there. It's going to be a very interesting game. They moved it to Thursday. It's going to be on ESPN. It was, I think, scheduled for Friday. You moved this game to Thursday because you want it to be a marquee game. And I think this gives Colorado another shot at the limelight. And I'm not saying they didn't have any shots last year. They were on national television every week pretty much. But you move this game. I don't love the Thursday move because I just love college football on a Saturday. But I love Colorado getting the spotlight because I think a lot of people – I think there's going to be more people tuned in this year in 2026 because guess what? They want to see Colorado fail again, right? The first year in 2023, people tuned in because they wanted to see Deion Sanders fail, and then they couldn't stop watching at first because there was success, and then they sort of started hate watching once they started failing. 2024, they excel, they are thriving, and I think people. Plus, they had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, so there's that as well. But I think people got disappointed because they couldn't hate as much, right? You were just kind of stuck. And so it's just one of those things where now I think people will start to hate watch Colorado again. Colorado is going to get hate watched again because people want to see them go 3-9 again, right? They want to see Coach Prime fall on his face. Now, I think they beat Georgia Tech on the road. I think Colorado is going to start off 4-0 next year. And I think this is going to be a huge test for them, a huge opportunity, because I like the roster they put together. That being said, this game is just one of those things where you have to I guess we have to get used to the new college football schedule where it's just like, yeah, not every game is going to be on Saturday, but Georgia Tech on a Thursday evening, it gives Colorado a prime opportunity to make a statement because Georgia Tech was really good last year, borderline playoff team. And it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, Colorado, make a statement. Let's do it. I'm going to answer some questions before we go. How is Colorado? I answered that question like 5 times. Colorado, I say, was exposed because they were chasing player profiles, not player production. And that's how you end up with Jaheim Otis's, Caden Salters, pretty much the entire transfer portal class from a year ago where they had great measurables, but were not good players. So they are now going after guys who have certified film. Coach Prime himself has said, I'm watching the film. I'm looking at the film. And so it's one of those things where I think they're putting in more effort to finding talented players rather than guys who look like they fit the part. So it's not a negative word. It's literally just my opinion. What else? Spring ball starts, I think, in a few days. It's within the next week or so, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I just got an email today, I believe. So spring ball's coming up. So look out for those snippets on Well Off Media. What else do we have? The defensive line coach has not been named yet. Me and Jay both think Ed Orgeron would be a good possible fit. I know a lot of people are like, why would Ed Orgeron go to Colorado? I don't think people realize how poorly his tenure ended at LSU. He was literally begging for a coaching opportunity a couple months ago. Like, he wants to coach really bad. So if you think that Ed Orgeron wouldn't take another coaching opportunity after how disastrous his tenure ended in Baton Rouge. I have some property in North Dakota that's beachfront that I'd love to show you. But yeah, I appreciate all you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Hope all of you have a great Monday night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. This has been Locked on Buffs.